How's it going, everybody? And welcome to another installment of a Tech Support Thursday. So we're going to be going over some questions that I've gotten over the past couple weeks. I know I've been sort of radio silence, sort of trying to keep up with it, but I really haven't put any time or major effort into any of that stuff lately. So I want to try to get back on the bandwagon again and get back after it. So we're going to start diving into this. I'm going to go back a little ways and cover some stuff. So, without any further ado, um, so I'm the Patreon All Access Pass is live. So, if you guys are interested in any of that type of content, whether it's workbooks, the technical solutions to the workbook, um, labs, the coaching sessions, any of that type of stuff, that's going to go underneath the All Access Pass. And I'm thinking now that I don't know if I'm going to leave all three up, which right now there's still the $10 a month method where you would just pay for the topology files, configs, and the coaching sessions, or if I want to just minimize it down to two, have the All Access Pass and then the workbooks. I don't know yet. I'm going to have to play that by ear. So there's that. So now with that being done, my goal is to record a bunch of videos to be the technical solutions to the workbook tasks. So that means that we're going to go through a technical deep dive. So it's going to take some time for me to record all of that, similar to what I was doing with the YouTube-based Cisco Enterprise series, except for this is going to be, eventually I'm probably just going to go ahead and unlist those videos because I'm going to transition that to Patreon. Anything technical, any technical deep dives, stuff like that is going to be a behind a paywall. Anything that's more high level design, that type of stuff will probably be free through YouTube. So, it's if I'm going to put the time and effort into the videos and the content, I want to get something back from it. So the view counts I was getting on the videos for the enterprise track, just they weren't there. I would get under 100 views for putting what I would consider a lot of work into the content. So it's just my way of kind of guaranteeing something back for that. And $25 a month, you can cancel it anytime, start it back up whenever you want. So all that stuff that goes with it. So with that being said, let's dive into the first couple of questions here. Like I said, the All Access Pass is live. If you buy that, you should have access to workbooks, anything in the Google Drive that you would see in the videos. So it's going to be EVE and configuration files, and the technical videos for the workbooks. So apparently William will be signing up here soon. Is this the same workbook videos for Narcy, or is this something different? And this is the enterprise workbook that I released back in January. This is the video series for the technical solutions. So my goal is to try to work through the entire workbook and come up with technical solutions for all that content. So that is what that is. So looks like a lot of folks are going to be going the All Access Pass route. So from the YouTube AMA, Cisco Docs and RFCs, I think the pseudo SD-WAN reference was more of a relation to understanding HSRP, but HSRP is more for the LAN than WAN. So it can be, yes, and in most cases it is, but depending on your design, it might be for more. So I also did take the CCDE written exam at Cisco Live in Vegas, and I was able to pass that, so that recertified my CCIE. So right now my goal is to spend the majority of my time going through probably during the work week, is record videos for the technical solutions, the workbook, and then weekends probably is going to be what do you call it? Studying for the CCDE. There's a lot of material out there for it, and I'll probably cover that towards the end of this video. So there's that. Your video is amazing, but I have to ask you about if I can go straight forward with a specific blueprint, such as CCNP Encore, without reading official books like Cisco Press. I meant that if I can pass the exam according to the video courses and practicing extensive real lab scenarios, does that fill up the gap? So you can do it that way, yes. I am a firm believer that if you spend the time to learn the material, do you need the official certification guide or a Cisco Press book in order to do that? My answer is no, you really don't. I have passed, well, just about every certification I've gone after that was routing and switching. Fortunately for me, routing and switching is a very, well, enterprise now, is a very popular track. So there's obviously material written for it. So what is not out there as widely is wide coverage of security, service provider, data center. So a lot of those topic areas are much more difficult to write content on. So with that being said, it doesn't hurt to go through a certification guide from Cisco Press. It definitely would probably help. So, but if you were to learn how to navigate, and I'll show you what this looks like here in just a minute. If you were to go, and I'll do it right now. I have them bookmarked. I have 4 exams: enterprise infrastructure security, service provider collaboration. The only one I don't have up here is data center or CCDE, and I really should have that up there. As a matter of fact, I will. I'll go ahead and tab that out real quick just because it makes more sense to do it. So here on Cisco's website, if you come down here to certifications, and then you go to explore certifications, and then you come down here to, I'm going to pull up design, and we'll learn about CCDE. I am going after the 3.1 version of the exam. So if we come down here to, where is it? Exams and training. Come down here to the practical exam. Actually, one second. That was the wrong one. I want this one. Learn more. So this is the version 3.1. They're adding AI. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Sorry. So if we click here, I think if I go back to this guy, yeah, here it is. So I'm working on the 3.1 because I'm planning on taking my time. There's no rush for me. I have 3 years. So I'm probably not going to even need to take that much time, but I do plan on going once October of 2025 rolls around. That'll be my 10-year anniversary for my CCIE. I'm going to go emeritus, which I think is $85 a year. There's no real value in me keeping it active. So if I go to the unified exam topics and I click here, I'm actually going to bookmark this. The technology list, so if anybody that's interested in CCDE, what you want to do is you want to take a look at the core technology list, and then you'll have to choose one of these areas of expertise. So they added AI infrastructure, large-scale networking, on-prem and cloud, workforce mobility. So these are going to be areas that you're going to have to be really, really knowledgeable on. So obviously you're going to be doing a lot of labbing in those areas. So I'm going to be choosing large-scale networks is going to be the direction I'm going to go with that, but not limiting my studying to that. So there's a workforce mobility, which is a lot of wireless. On-prem and cloud is going to be obviously data center and cloud computing, things like that. I haven't decided to go into AI infrastructure yet because it's so far out for me right now, it doesn't even matter. So core technology wise, this is what I'm going to have to go learn. I have to go learn most of the stuff I already know. So I am actually spending my time learning the areas that I don't know as well. So at the very bottom here, there's some wireless. I'm going through wireless right now. Then I'll spend my time going through security. Then probably wrap up some automation stuff and understanding how all that type of stuff works. And then I'll work my way up to WAN, VPN, network virtualization, then routing and all that stuff that goes with it, then technology stuff. So obviously I'm going to work my way backwards, learn the stuff that I don't know as well first, so that I can speed through the process down the road. That is going to be the next direction I go with workbooks. And I'm going to have a workbook based off per topic. So that's the direction I'm going with it. There will be design elements to it. The format has yet to be figured out. But what I am going to do is I'm going to call this DE v3.1, and I'll put -C for core. So that'll go off screen, and then I'm going to do one here for this guy as well. I'm going to bookmark this. This will be here DE v3.1, and then I'm going to put in here large scale LSN for large scale networks. So they're just going to be hanging out down here. So they're both sitting here. I will move them over here momentarily. The exam topics are here, so I could even do this, and I can put this one here, be DE v3.1. I will move them closer over here. So with that being said, that's essentially the direction and how I'm going to be going about doing it. So I will be posting regularly on how that process is going to look. So what I do is I take the blueprint, going back to your question, I take the blueprint, I'm sorry, this one right here. I take the blueprint and I learn based off of that. So I look up if we go over here to EI, this is where I was originally going. If I look at this, and then I come back over here to the enterprise infrastructure and I go to additional resources, and I can look at the equipment and software list. What platforms do I have to go learn? So I have to learn the Cat 8 KV, I have to learn iOS 15.8, 15.2, so SD-WAN, all that stuff, DNAC 2.3, so on and so forth. So these are things that I have to go learn if I want to go take the CCDE Enterprise Infrastructure exam. So with that being said, now that I know what versions of code to go work on, I can start digging into the documentation on those platforms to learn the routing protocols, layer 2 networking, SD-WAN, DNA, the Cat 8 KV, so on and so forth. So having that baseline really helps with getting into the weeds of how the technology works. And that to me is how you go about doing that. I'm going to start documenting this because even though the core technology area, they list the technologies that you're going to have to learn, I'm going to assume that because of the way the blueprints are laid out, I'm going to study the technologies based off of the CCIE track. So that means if I'm here in routing protocols, I'm going to be looking at the equipment and software list for enterprise infrastructure, finding out versions of code, what platforms, and then I'll be labbing based off of that. That'll help me definitely right size myself for that. In addition to that, with large scale networking, there's a lot for MPLS. So it's basically a service provider specialty, if you will. So as I work through CCDE, I will be at the same time studying for CCIE service provider. So, and ironically enough, if you look at the bottom of here, you see a lot of security. There's a lot that goes into this when it comes to infrastructure security, perimeter security. There's some zero trust, and you have network control and identity management. So there's a good clustering of the the concentration exams for security, which would definitely put me in a good spot to go knock out a CCNP in security, and then with wireless, a CCNP in wireless. So it's going to help me widen my technology understanding. You guys can't see it, but there's a list of technologies I want to go learn anyway, and it just happens to, they all line up. It was just happenstance. So there's that piece. So that's what I would recommend you going through is look at the exam blueprint, go figure out what versions of code. If you guys have questions on stuff, I will try my best to provide clarity and how all that type of stuff works. So there's that. Another question was, I'm truly impressed by the number of certifications you've completed. Your ability to balance study with your other responsibilities is remarkable. Well, I appreciate that. Could you create a video outlining your study process for these exams? I'm particularly interested in how you determine when you're ready to take an exam, among other insights you might share. So a couple of these other comments in here kind of line up with that. So when you're ready for the exam, so that kind of coincides with this one right here. I like the way you made the Excel spreadsheet. Did the same for my CCIE and using the same style again for CCDE currently. Can recommend. Looking forward to more of your videos on that. Cool. So essentially what that does for me is by having the core technology list, and I haven't started building out the spreadsheet for it, but I'm going to. And what that's going to help me do is it's going to help me start diving into these individual technologies, and it's going to help me understand the sheer breadth, how much depth and how much width I'm going to have to go through in order to learn the technologies that are out there. That's okay though, because then it'll give me an idea where I'm going. And for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, if I bring this up over here, let me pull up this. When I was studying for my VMware VCIX for a network virtualization exam for NSX, what I did is I took the entire blueprint and I put it into an Excel spreadsheet. Talked about, did I read up on the topic? Did I go through, read the documentation? Did I take notes on it? Yes. Everything in here I read up on. And then the topic, if I could lab it up, I did. I went through the documentation. If it was supported, yes. Some things were not supported, but even if I couldn't click the button or if it wasn't grayed out or whatever the case might be, I did my best to make sure to test it out or know where in the GUI to turn the feature on if I needed to. And that was, to me, that was the key, the main first piece that I needed to go through and do was that. And that's exactly what I did. It really helped me understand how everything worked. So what it did is it forced me to go through every bullet point. And that's how I was able to basically guarantee myself a pass. I mean, obviously there's never a guarantee unless you know the questions going in to the exam, and then that's just cheating. So I did my time to go through that, and it takes some time. But at the end of the day, that's what the whole learning process is for, because I don't go in to an exam hoping to pass for the sake of passing, right? I want to be able to take what I understand and know and be able to utilize that elsewhere, whether it's creating technical content, walking you guys through how something works, things like that, or being able to utilize my skills to deliver a solution. I mean, at the end of the day, that's how I make my money, right? So I would obviously love to see Patreon take off and be on par with my full-time job and, all that stuff. I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but that's the direction I'm trying to go with it. So I'm happy to answer questions you guys have regarding that. It just takes some time to get through that. So there's that piece. So what do you think of doing weekly lab streams over the topics you're studying for? I think that would be awesome for those of us who want to follow along. Yeah, sure. I could totally do that. Dive into the areas that I'm digging into and kind of recap what I've learned and things like that. Rob, I would love to see your content around your CCDE studies. I'm on track for the CCIE at the moment, and CCDE is something that I'm interested in. Cool. Yeah, I'm totally interested in doing that too. I have to figure out what it is that I would have to do in order to make all of that a reality. I have an idea of how I want to go about doing the technology or doing the workbook, where I have the workbook I'm planning on building a very large workbook, and I have no idea how big it's going to be yet. So don't even ask. It's just an idea right now. Of if I go back over here to the core technology list. So for example, right now I'm starting in wireless. So I'm going through a bunch of wireless training right now to understand how wireless works. Probably taking it further than I need to, but at the end of the day, I'd rather know more about it than I need to, so that when I get to the exam, there's no gotchas. There's no, uh-oh, I didn't go deep enough in that area. So I'd rather overstudy. See, that's just how I am, and be comfortable going into the exam. I did okay on the written exam. There were a handful of questions where I was like, I'm not really sure, but that's design, right? So what I'm doing and will be doing is based off this, I will be creating a section in the workbook that'll be dedicated to wireless, and it'll be a deep dive into the area. Well, the workbooks will always be more of a here's a known good configuration in order to get this to work, and then a small paragraph or two explanation as to what that particular feature does and why it's used, things like that. That will be available, and then in addition to that, the videos, it's a whole lot easier to talk about the technology than it is to write out 17 pages of text in a book to do it. So I'd rather have videos. If you guys have the All Access Pass through Patreon, then you'll be able to just access that way. If you don't want it anymore, you just cancel it. If you want it again in a couple months, re-up it and continue to go along. So that's my goal, and what's like I said, it's going to force me to go through SD-WAN. It's going to force me to go through ASA. It's going to force me to go through FTD. It's going to force me to go through VPN, DMVPN, GetVPN, ICE, probably web and email security, if I had to guess. So it's not specifically called out here, but there's a lot of stuff in here that's going to need to be gone through. And like I said, I'm the type that typically overstudies, just because that's the nature of who I am. So that's where I'm planning on going with this. And if we, like I said, if we go back up here to this stuff right here, they talk about multi-protocol label switching. So MPLS, there's LDP, RSVP, BGP plus label. So we're already going to be talking service provider. There's segment routing, so we're going to be talking segment routing. And then there's other technologies like DMVPN, GetVPN, IPsec, so on and so forth. Tunnel endpoint selection, parameter optimization of end user application, overlay, Lisp, VXLAN, stuff like that. So there's going to be a lot that goes into how this all works. So if you don't know the technology well enough, you're going to have a hard time answering design questions related to it. And to be honest with you, when I was studying for the CCDE, the written exam, the main thing that I was easy to answer a lot of the routing questions because I already had a core foundational understanding of how the routing worked. I know BGP, I know MPLS, I know OSPF, I know ISIS, I know EIGRP, RIP, I know spanning tree, I know VXLAN. So if you don't already have a technical foundation that's fairly deep, I don't know how you're going to be able to walk into a design exam and be able to answer design questions if you don't know the gotchas with for example, the max metric router LSA in OSPF and why you would use that to take a router out of service in a network environment. If you don't know what that capability does, then you're never going to be able to, if they have questions on it, the design might lead you that direction. You'll read the questions, you might not know what that means. So you're like, well, why would you use that? If you don't understand how that technology works or what that feature does, then I don't know how you're going to answer design questions. It was actually kind of funny. I was talking to a friend of mine about this at Cisco Live, and we were talking about can an architect be an architect if the architect doesn't have a strong technical background, especially in the line of work that we do. And without even breaking a sweat or stride, I said, no. Like, how can you architect something and provide a direction, strategy, and some insight if you don't know how the technology works? Like, I wouldn't be able to talk about SD-WAN to the level of depth that I have, regardless of the platform that it's running on, if I didn't understand what SD-WAN is, how it works, and am I a expert on all platforms that SD-WAN runs on? No, but there is a high level uh, generic understanding of what SD-WAN's job is to do, and if you understand those core competencies, you can talk about it. Just about every platform does the same thing. How they implement things and under the covers changes from platform to platform, but I was like, be a how could you propose a design to a customer if you don't know how the technology works? It just doesn't make any sense. Just like um, I don't know much about cars, so like changing the oil, putting in uh, windshield wiper fluid, or topping off the I'm thinking here because I don't do it very often, but yeah, the fluids, making sure that the tires have air in them, basic car maintenance type stuff, gas, oil changes, things like that. Those are pretty easy to do. Now, if there's anything more complicated, like I need to do a tune-up on it, I need to replace the spark plugs, or the alternator, or the spark plug cables, or I need to replace the serpentine belt, or any number of other things that are, I understand what they are and what they do, but how to actually go about doing them, I don't know. I take that to somebody that knows how to do that, and I pay them for their time and their effort because that's outside of my comfort zone. Could I figure it out? Maybe, but it's my time is more valuable elsewhere. So it's like that's why I pay someone that already knows how to do that. It's like, okay, here's $150. Go handle it for me, and let me know how much it. Like, okay, it cost me 200 for whatever. There was an extra thing where they're like, hey, your cabin filter needs to be changed up. Okay, how much is that? $20. Cool. We'll go ahead and change it. If you're recommending it needs to get done, maybe they're just trying to sell me more stuff and make more money. Okay, fine, whatever. $20. I'm not gonna sneeze at that. But that's the same concept. Like, if I don't know how to do something, I'm gonna take it to somebody that does. So that's where this logic comes into play, where you need to be able to implement the technology and know how it works before you can go architect solutions around it. I need to build a computer that will run the simulation in this video. May you please inform me the CPU, RAM, storage requirements of my needed rig. Well, this is running on a dedicated server, so a dedicated server would definitely be needed. So that's where this comes into play. But so I got a lot of good ideas for the design aspect of it. So let's see here. Let's see. I think it would help a ton in understanding enterprise topologies in real cases. If the current Cisco Encore book had step-by-steps in creating my own enterprise labs that could be replicated in production, it would allow me to see how certain devices or technologies work better in one scenario versus another. Looking forward to seeing what you... Oh, okay. So this is why I like getting feedback from you guys, because I hadn't thought of that, to be honest with you. So getting feedback from you guys on what you would like to see in the content and how that comes into play. One of the things that I actually joked around with a guy about, I was at live, a guy walked up to me, he called my name, I heard him, he walked up, we met for the, I was on my way to a session, he was on his way to a session, but he wanted to say hi. And as soon as he left, another gentleman walked up to me, and we got to talking for just a couple of minutes. And it was interesting because he was under the... he asked me why I push building your own labs so hard. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he goes, well, I don't understand why you spend so much time pushing people to build their own labs when that really isn't our job. And I said, well, what job do you have? And he, network engineer. And I said, okay. So what you're basically telling me is you don't, like, do you have to worry about deploying anything? And he goes, no, I don't. I said, okay, well, that makes sense. So I said, well, what if you did have to worry about deploying something yourself? What would you do in that particular case? And or you're looking to do a refresh of a particular hardware. Let's say you're taking ASA firewalls that are technically end of life, end of sale, and no longer being supported, and you need to upgrade to something new. And your manager comes to you and says, "Hey, reach out to Palo Alto, Checkpoint, Fortinet, Cisco, and PFSense, and put together, get them all in here to start talking at a high level, and we'll see about getting proof of concept started." You have your marching orders, right? Your boss told you to start reaching out to vendors, scheduling meetings with these vendors to begin looking at migrating away from your legacy firewall to a next generation firewall and what that process would look like. And he basically was like, okay, well, I just reach out to them, have them do the work. And I go, well, there's more to it than that. And so I kind of went into the explanation of, if you're thinking about doing a proof of concept, I was like, you have to be able to provide enough information for the vendor to be able to give you the information you need and put together a proof of concept. And then you have to give them a criteria. What does proof of concept's success criteria look like? What do you want to get out of your proof of concept? And so it was an interesting conversation. It lasted a little longer than I would have liked, but the gentleman basically was just like, "Well, I still don't see why that I need to go and build my own labs." It was like, my shouldn't the instructor build the labs for you, and then you just go through the specifics? Like, if I want to learn how to create an IPsec VPN between two different firewalls, then everything else that needs to be working should already be put in, built. All I have to do is focus on the IPsec VPN configuration and verification process. And I said, okay, well, if you're in a learning stage, yes, I agree with you. But once you've learned how to do that and you're going into production, who do you expect to do the building of all this stuff for you? And he goes, well, my coworkers, my manager. And I said, well, you have a very jaded understanding of how the IT industry works. I said, because if you expect your manager to do your job for you, you're going to be out of a job. That's what's going to end up happening. So you're going to need to take that mentality of, it needs to be put into place at work, and all I'm responsible for is this, then IT is not for you. You need to be comfortable doing things that you may not know how to do, and you're going to have to learn how to do them. So he didn't really like that, and I go, well, that's how it is, man. I'm like, I don't know any customer or any organization where I can go to my boss and say, hey, I need you to do this for me. I need you to do all of my work for me on top of all your duties, and then once that's done, I'll come in, I'll do my little piece, and then we'll be good to go. Your boss, if he has any self-respect, is going to laugh you out of the office. I wouldn't, like, I'd fire you if I were your manager and that's what you came and told me to do. I'd be looking for another engineer, because that's not what a network engineer is supposed to do. He didn't really like that, and I was just like, it's okay. You don't have to like it. It's just my opinion. So, but there are, I'd say that's the minority of the industry of not wanting to put the time and effort into it. The majority of you guys are looking to better yourselves and get a better understanding. So these are things that you're going to have to go through and to learn how to do. Simple as that. So that's really where I was going with that. I'm trying to go back. So a lot of folks were really interested in going through design as well. So I'll be doing that for sure, and getting into the operations piece of it, because there's definitely some stuff to be learned from the DE and design that isn't already put into play. So that's where it's going to be challenging to write a book and include technical pieces to it. So I'm still working on what that's going to look like, but hopefully that'll be out soon. So, but probably not, probably not before the end of the year. My guess is going to probably take me a while to write that. So think of the Encore and an RC workbook being put on hold until I can get the Enterprise video series knocked out for the Enterprise workbook for the solutions, and then also be able to do the start going through the individual sections of the workbook. And no, I'm not going to release them individual workbooks. That would just be too much of a hassle. I'm just going to go and make one big workbook, and then you guys will be able to get all of that once it's ready to go. So with that being said, I want to thank you guys for stopping by and hanging out with me, and I'll catch all of you guys in the next one.